Hey guys, what's going on? So it seems like color grading is a really popular subject right now in the Headshot Crew portrait track. So what I wanted to do was create a video and share my thoughts and process on how I go about color grading. There's all kinds of different ways you can do it, from manual to using plugins. I'm more of a manual photographer. My philosophy behind color grading is if you can learn to do this manually, you'll be able to better tell your story through the color harmony you envision, versus just kind of clicking through filters and options. You can actually plan out how you want to tell a story. So, and that actually stems from me starting out as a photographer. I can remember, my mentors telling me when I first started that I need to get off of shooting auto, and I need to learn to master the exposure triangle and shoot raw. So that philosophy kind of extended all the way up through learning um, studio lighting to retouching and last color grading. So I want to go into the couple different ways that I color grade. We're going to do this through two different images. So this first one of my buddy Raul, who's a guitarist, this is some of my editorial portraiture. So we're going to color grade this one. This is actually the color graded version, and then that's before the color grade. So, and then the second image we're going to do is a lifestyle image that I did with a portfolio development. So this one, here's the color grade, and then this one is that this is before the color grade. So the first step that I do in my editorial portraits, I kind of look over the image, and 99% of the time I'm gonna honestly color grade off of my backdrops. So like this one is my blue oliphant, so I'm gonna start my color grade based off of that. So I'm going to jump ahead real quick. Once you learn how to do this process, I recommend creating actions. This is going to save a lot of time. So just to show you how quick it is real quick, just to, just to show you how quick this is to run it through an action once you've built these. My first step is going to my color range, and then I'll start on my shadows, and then I'll dial in where I want my mask, and then I'm going to hit my command F2, and then boom, I've already got my color grade started. But I want to show you how to do that manually. That way later on you can build your own actions however you want it. So again, we're going to go to color range, shadows, and then you got two different sliders, your fuzziness and your range. So I will just play around with my fuzziness. I tend to keep it between 25 and 35. It just kind of depends on really my mood on what it looks like to me. So, and then my range is where you're actually going to pump the colors into your shadows. So this is, only hitting the deepest of shadows, and this is pretty much covering the whole image. So I'll find, what kind of looks good to me on the mask, and you gotta kind of think ahead. So, again, with Photoshop mask, white is reveal, black is conceal. So, knowing that, you just kind of plan out or kind of envision where your color is going to hit. So like up in here, and then there's going to be a little bit up in here. So once you get that figured out, hit OK, and you get your dancing ants. Then you're going to want to go to new layer, new fill layer, solid color. And you come down here to color, and then this usually pulls the last color you picked off, regardless of what image it is. So what you can do is just hit OK, and you can see here, the brown is really pumped into the shadow. So you can see there. That's not how I'm going to color grade this image though. So what you do is you click it off so you can see the organic colors in your image. And then you pull your color picker back up. Just double click on your color panel here. And I go around, looking, holding my mouse down, if you go around the image, you can see the color picker kind of going haywire over there. And what that is just showing you what color you're going to end up selecting. So what I do is I'll find, the right shade of blue. That looks about normally what I use. So I click that and you hit OK. And then boom. So I've got my blue already in there. But it's way too much. It's at 100%. So I'm going to bring it down to about maybe 45-ish or so. And you can see, if you get in there, you can see where the color grade is. So the next part that I do is I go to color range again, and I'm going to go to my midtones. And then I'm going to dial in my midtones. So again, I kind of envision where the next color is that I'm going to push in. So that looks about right. So I'm going to do that. And then again, you're going to hit layer, new layer, solid color, color, and then boom. So I know generally it's a green that I use here. So excuse me. So I'll do that to start there. So now this is where I start building my color grade. So I'll click that off. Now I have all this already mapped out with my actions, but to do this manually, I'm going to show you the tool that I generally use. So you want to get your color code. You want to copy that. And I'm going to show you a website that I use. There's actually two websites you can use. There's this Peloton and there's this Adobe color wheel. The website's actually color.adobe.com. So this is where you plug in your color. And then you've got your different, and then you can start playing with your drop downs, and it gives you different options on your color grading. So that actually looks like the Pantone colors a couple years ago, which is, truth be told, that's a color palette that I do use sometimes in my lifestyle images. So that's something you could think about too, is the Pantone colors. So back to this site. So you down here to your base RGB. This is where you want to put your color code that you picked. And what that does, it builds up color harmonies, for you to select. Now you got different options up here. You got your triadic, quadratic. These are the three that I normally use, and this is more of a monochromatic right here. So in my midtones, I usually use a shade of this green, and I'm gonna copy that color. I'm gonna go back to Photoshop. I'm gonna paste that there. Oh, wrong color. I'm gonna paste it on my midtones. I'm gonna dial this sucker way down. So you can kind of see in this area where the green's starting to hit. And then it's also affecting his skin tone. So you can dial your skin tones back in. Sometimes I've got two different methods for doing this if the color grade gets too crazy on the skin tones. So if you hit Option or Alt on the mask, it'll pull that up. And what you can do is you can start to paint over a little bit. What that is going to mask some of that green. So actually, it's just for extreme purposes, just get rid of all that. So zooming in, like when you paint over it, see where it takes some of that green out. So play with that as you want with your color tone or your skin tones. And then the last step I do for my color grading is, again, go to color range, and this time I'm going to select my highlights. I dial that in, and I only usually hit the highlights, very subtly. So I just make a slight inclusion of them. Like right there, that's way too much highlight color grading for me. So I usually do this, and it usually hits the skin tones. Let's dial that down a little bit more. So then, once again, we'll go to layer, new layer fill, solid color, mode is color. And you go get your color picker up, and then you go back here, and I'll use purple. Why? Because I like it. Whoop. Yep, we're right. So again, you want to dial that down. So and this is a really creative part. So I mean, all this is going to be subjective to how you go about it. I mean, this is where you can really explore your creativity and artistic side. So I don't think there's really a wrong way to color grade. I think you can just really overdo it. So like if I left my highlights up more, that looks funky. So I just kind of bring that down to what looks good. Boom. So group these together. There's my color grade. So, and it's really subtle. You can probably I could probably bring my shadows up more if I wanted. Sometimes I do get a bit more extreme with that. But yeah, so that's the first method. So the other method, this is something I was taught like years ago, and I used this for the longest time before I started using this method I just showed you. But I still do use this method every now and then. So you'll want to go to your adjustments, and you want to go to your black and white. And you can make 2 copies of these. And you want to name one red. Green. Blue. You want to take these off. And then you want to click on tint on each of these. So then what you do is you go into channels and you deselect these so you just got your red. And you want to hit Command click on your red and then Command C to copy that. Then you want to click all your layers on, and then you make sure your layer mask is highlighted, and you can hit Command I, and it's going to paint the mask. Then you hit deselect. So what I'm doing is color grading in the red channel, and this usually works best with your tones more towards the whiter side. So let's see here. So if I wanted to kind of make some more warmth in this, I'll probably do something, like in there. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. So let's see. I'll probably do something like, I want some orange. Oh, that's good enough just for example purposes. So you hit that, And then you can just bring this down. Oh, you want to hit this to color too. Or I think you can use luminosity. Nope, I was wrong, it's color. So then you just play with your opacity. And then the same thing, you know, with your other channel. So if you want to do your blue, go into channels, deselect these. You want to make sure your blue is selected. Command and click, and then Command C, click all your layers back on. Make sure that layer's selected. Command I, and then deselect. So then here, you know, you select something. You know, if you want to pump a little bit more blues in your blue channel, or maybe your reds. Which I don't like that. I'm gonna go back to blue. So then essentially you would do the same thing with your green channel. So there you go. That's another method you can use. This usually works also better with lifestyle images or outside images. I'm not sure there's technical reasons why, but I've had better luck with this method on my outdoor work. Anything indoor, it's always been this process here where I do color grades for shadows, midtones, and highlights. And you can do more layers too. You know, if you wanted to do another layer where you affected the different parts of the shadows, you would just do the same process and you would just dial in where you want your shadows, you know, and then you can select a different complementing color, whatnot. So there's that. So the second image with Tyler, hold on, let me rewind for a second. There's another tool that I use too. So when I'm looking at images, and I'm trying to figure out how I want to do my color harmony, I've got this poster hanging above my monitor. It's the systems of colors. You can get them at like your local art shops, or you can even buy them online. And it's the color wheel, so I will literally look up at that and, you know, figure out what colors are in the image organically, and then, you know, figure out if I want to do like something more monochromatic, or if I want to do just two tones like complementing, or if you want to do triadic, you know, where there's three different colors evenly spaced all the way around. So that kind of helps me visualize what kind of mood I want to do. So I think I paid like $20 for it or something. So it's worth getting, in my opinion. So back to Tyler. So when we was in the studio, we were piecing together her different outfits she was wanting to shoot in. And I knew the side of the studio had this gray, this bluish gray paint, which is awfully close to the color in this shawl or scarf. So I planned on playing with color harmony based off her clothes in the existing environment, and I knew I would color grade off of the combination of that. So same thing. See here, I started with her shadows. Click these all off. I started with her shadows. Then I added some brown to the midtones, and then again, ever so slightly some purple highlights. So, and then I did a selective color to kind of tweak it a little bit more. I think I crushed the blacks a little bit with my selective color. And then I did a gradient map over it to kind of smooth everything out. So, again, let me just show you how quick this goes once you build your actions. So, you want to do your color range, shadows, just figure out where you want them. Boom. And then I'm going to hit Command F2, and then boom, I already got my blue. But I don't want blue. I want to color grade off the organic color. So I ended up picking a green from her dress. And I made it a little bit lighter. So there we go. Now we got some green overlying in the shadows. And then, so I did the same thing with midtones. Just figured out where I wanted them. That's good for this video. And then I've got my action set as Command F3. Boom. So there's my new midtones. But I don't want that color, and actually I picked the color from her skin tone. That brown I pulled from her skin tone. Trying to match it. So it was somewhere in there, maybe there. Boom. And then my highlights. We'll just go with that. And then I hit Command F4. Boom, my highlights are already there. Which this worked with my color grading. So I think I just dialed it down. Let's separate these. So there's before and there's a color grade I just did. And then you can add selective color, and you can do like your blacks. If you want to crush them down a little bit. Just kind of play with your sliders to something that looks good. And then the last thing I did was a gradient map. So I know there's one in here, this one. So that's the one I started with, because this one already has the green and purple in there. So this you'll want to change the color again and bring your opacity like way down. So what I did here was I copied this color of my midtones, and on my gradient map I don't want that orange in there, so I replaced it with that color. And then I brought that over some. So that just kind of gives it a nice finishing touch. So that's one we just did. And then this is the one that I created when I actually retouched the image. So, and then the last tip I have, so if you're going to color grade a set of images, I really recommend getting your exposure and your shadows and everything dialed in. If you're using Capture One, dial it in Capture One or Lightroom before you bring it over to Photoshop. Make sure your white balance, all that stuff is uniform, because hard lesson learned was not setting that, and I was trying to color grade a set of images one time, and I had my white balance off, and it threw off the images when I was trying to color grade. I couldn't get it right, and I figured out that it was because my white balance was off. So once you get all that uniform, you can keep one of these images open, off to the side. And what I will do is, like, if this is the one I want to color grade off of, I'm going to select my mask. Like if I'm getting ready to do my shadows, and then I'll dial my mask in to kind of replicate what this mask is showing, as far as like where my shadows are starting to get masked out or whatnot. So that makes everything, that helps you create a cohesive finished set. So I hope this helps. If you guys got any questions, feel free to send me a message and I will get back with you guys. Thanks.